Hello and welcome to the two-man power trip of wrestling. I'm your host, JP John Paz. With me today, very special guest, the former head of security for the WWE, Mr. Jimmy Noonan. Jimmy, welcome to the two-man power trip. How you doing?
What's up, brother? How's everybody doing out there? I would imagine the weather's a little different up by where you are in Jersey. I'm in Miami, so I'm glad I'm not there. That was the whole idea of getting out. I don't have to deal with that weather. But I'm a Jersey boy.
That's right, Rutherford, Jersey. That's nice. Not too far away from
St.
me.
Mary's in Rutherford, baby.
What's been going on in your world? What have you been up to?
Oh, so I came down here. I did a one-man show in New York City. I don't know if the WWE fans remember, but before WWE, and after WWE, I had a pretty big acting career. I kind of WWE interrupted it. I had to make a decision. I got offered. When you're an actor in New York City or Los Angeles, unless you're a star, you have to have another job. I was training people in gyms. I had training clients, and but I started doing some security work. And what? Oh, so I'm doing my acting stuff, and I'm doing security, and I had a real good run. Real good run. I was coming off a Broadway show. I did a bunch of shows in New York City. I mean, I was on this. I did a bunch of movies, Super Troopers, and a bunch of movies back to back to back. And I interrupted that by going on the road with WWE and then staying there for 8.5, 9 years, whatever it was. And then so recently I kind of got back to my roots and I went up on stage in New York City, an off-Broadway show that we put up, me and a friend. It was a one-man show called Little Jimmy. And it's about kind of like about my life, about some situations in my life, funny stuff, really, really sad stuff from being a little kid. And didn't talk about WWE in it. I talk a lot about my sobriety, and as everybody knows, and anybody who's listened to my story, they know I'm long-term sobriety, 36 years. So it's a lot about sobriety and the things I did before I got sober, and even the things I did after I got sober. So the show was a tremendous success. We did it at the Producers Club on 44th and 9th in New York. But going back on stage 30 years later was so stressful. I had to get out of New York after that, and the weather was getting cold. So I was able to come down to Miami. We're in Bal Harbor, just north of Miami Beach at the St. Regis. Interestingly enough, I found out Roman Reigns lives here at the St. Regis property. So it's kind of interesting. Maybe I'll run into him. I don't know if he'd know who I am. I mean, I think he would know who I am. I don't think he'd remember me. He used to come backstage to WWE. I mean, he was a little kid. It was 20 years ago. You know what I mean? Like in the early 2000s when I was first there, he probably came backstage with, I guess, Uncle Rikishi. I guess Rikishi would be his uncle. So Uncle Kish, yeah. So he'd probably remember me. He probably wouldn't give a shit. You know what I mean? He'd be like, oh, just another old guy saying hello to me, man. By the way, I put on my colors tonight. Check this out.
Nice, yes.
I just thought it was fun. I had it with me. I put it on. But yeah, so life is good, man. I'm an old man now. God damn, I was old back then. I was in my 40s doing security for WWE. But now I'm in my 60s now, and it kind of sucks sometimes, But life is good. I'm healthy AF, as they say, and I got a great life, man. Yeah, I'm living. I'm on the beach every day in Miami. Doesn't suck.
That is pretty good.
Yeah.
How did you, just rewinding back to WWE, how did you kind of break in? How did you get into WWE? I know you're doing security, but how do you make the leap to WWE? Who hires you?
Well, if you're around New York, you're working for different companies, and I slowly gravitated towards the company out of a bunch of Jersey guys who had a company in New York City, and they're running WWF New York. So it's WWF New York by day. That's where the Hard Rock Cafe is right now. And it's the World Nightclub at night. And I'm doing both. So during the day, guys are coming in on their off days, and some not on their off days. Even Stone Cold and Rocky, Taker. I remember Billy Gunn was there one day, and you're handling these guys, and because I'm well spoken and I'm of a certain size and I'm white, they kind of gravitated towards me, and I gravitated towards them, and I'm probably the most well spoken of the group. So they kind of, we started talking. And then one day there was a need. And the next thing you know, I'm on the road with WWF. So, listen, people are always watching. And there were people at WWE watching. They didn't have a full-time dedicated security team there after Jim Dotson. The famous Jim Dotson, the muscular guy who wore the Kangol, red black leather Kangol cap backwards. Jim left, and then I think, they were kind of doing it willy nilly, post attitude aggression. No, add the attitude era.
Yep.
And we're about to go into the ruthless aggression era. And there was just openings, and it was Jimmy Tillis and myself. And, now it's funny. It's funny how I'm decidedly not a part of WWE history, right? Because I'm just Jimmy Noonan, the guy. But I'll tell you, man, when I'm online and I'm going through old pictures of Brock and Batista and Cena and Shelton Benjamin and Orton and Ray and Taker and Eddie and Benoit, and I'm in the background on all of them, or Shane Helms and Billy Kidman, or Spanky and Paul London. I'm always in the background. So it's kind of hard not to feel like a part of things, even though you're not a part of things, you're just doing a job. But I mean, I'm in thousands and thousands and thousands of pictures and thousands of hours of TV time. So to be not a part of it, but really knowing that I'm a part of it, it's kind of funny, Of course, I don't feel a part of it. I don't even talk to anybody anymore. Anybody. I mean, I'll exchange a joke on Facebook once in a while with like Shane Helms or bust Mike Bucci's balls about Nova, from ECW, his balls about the Cowboys. Because everybody hates the Cowboys, right? Especially a good Jersey boy from Asbury Park like you. Gotta hate the Cowboys. I have two jobs in life: to hate the Red Sox and to hate the Cowboys. That's all I do. But and once a year I'll talk to Kurt Angle, but I'll call him. I used to talk to Dave Bautista. We're not friends anymore. I don't talk to anybody, and it's kind of sad. It really is. It's kind of like a sad business. I don't know. It's just the whole thing's kind of pathetic, but God bless him. God bless him.
Why don't you talk to him anymore? Just like distance and time?
No, well, first of all, I wasn't one of the boys. So there's two people who travel with the boys. So the boys are the boys. And then there's always an agent, Arn Anderson, Fit Finley, Dean Malenko at the time, and they were ex-boys. So they're really the boys. And then there's a trainer, and then there's security. So there's only two people that travel who aren't wrestlers with the wrestlers all the time and are with them all the time and travel on the flights with them and sit in first class with them and drive with them on the road. And that's me and the trainer. And but we're not the boys. So we don't have the special bond. I didn't take bumps. So basically they could not give a flying about me. They just couldn't. They could, Larry, the trainer, or the other guy, the big heavy guy, nice guy, forget his name, they're at least, in a special situation with the boys because, they're taping them up and they're talking about their injuries and giving them stim and all that stuff. We're just there. We're just taking up space to them. We're useless to them. So you develop relationships with them, but at the end of the day, they could give a flying fuck because you're not one of the boys. You're not taking bumps. If you're not taking bumps, you are useless. You might as well be one of the marks they talk so hellaciously bad about. That's how low on the totem pole of WWE a guy like me is, which if you think about it is kind of sad. You know, it's pathetic in its own way, but it's the nature of the business. You know, you're either putting over your opponent or you're putting over yourself in the business, right? Because you got to make your money. You got to keep your spot. You got to play ball. Can't go into business for yourself, but you're definitely not going into business with Jimmy Noonan. You know what I mean? I'm just some guy, some random guy to them, traveling with them. You know, and it's funny. I'm traveling pretty much all over the world right now. I'm with a client yet again, and 1 week I'm in New York, the next week I'm in LA. You know, right now I'm at the St. Regis, the only 5-star resort in all of Miami right now, on the beach. It's beautiful, 5-star resort. The rooms are hellaciously priced. I'm not paying for them. My client's paying for them. And I was in Greenwich for living around the corner from Vince for about a month. And I figure sooner or later I'm going to run into somebody, you know? And it will always be interesting. Like, I thought I saw Stacy the other day. It wasn't her, but I thought I saw Stacy Keebler the other day at the Fountain Blue in Miami. And I was wondering, I just thought for a second, boy, that looks like, I wonder if that's Keebler, you know? And me and Keebler were never close, but we weren't exactly not close. And there were some situations where I was involved with her. I got her in and out of. I wasn't involved with her. That would have been sweet, though. But anyway, no, there were some situations that I was in with her. In different countries, and different times I looked after her. And WrestleManias, I kind of went to autograph signings and stuff with her. And I was thinking, what if I saw Stacy, right now, after being with her for 5-6 years with her, and even her when she was with Andrew, I was with them. And it just popped into my head. She'd probably do like anybody else would do. She'd probably ignore me, Jeff Hardy. I was going to say Benoit, but that's weird, isn't it?
Yeah.
Speaking of which, I don't know if everybody knows or anybody who's listening or is going to listen. This isn't live, right? This is taped?
Yep.
Yeah. So when they hear it, we're 1 week after the 18th anniversary of Eddie's death. One of the worst days in my life, and one of the dark days in WWE history. November 13th, 2005. So we're 1 week later after Eddie. But yeah, or Taker, like or Booker. Me and Booker would probably give each other a dirty look and call each other motherfuckers. Taker would probably just look at me, and just give me a dirty look. Yeah, it is what it is, But I was there a long time. Obviously, you know enough about this, John, right?
Yep.
John, you know enough about the business. You don't last at WWE if you're an asshole. No matter how, even if you're the top wrestler in the world, you're not going to last. I was there a long time. Obviously, I did something right. Obviously, I pleased the brass, Johnny Laurinaitis and Vince and Steph and Triple H, but yeah, I think for the most part they'd all just like, yeah, fuck you. You know what I mean?
How do you feel about that, though? That kind of stinks because you were there for, like you said, almost like a decade, basically.
I think it's the nature of the beast, bro. I mean, I think that's what I don't know what to say about it. I think it's rude. I've used the word pathetic. It's pathetic. But to be honest with you, it's like, a lot of those guys who were wrestlers, had no appreciable talent except for the fact they could fake punch and fake bump. And a lot of them, as I've said before, they probably would have been bouncers in clubs the rest of their life, or woodworkers, or car salesmen. if it wasn't for this weird thing called sports entertainment. I mean, think about it, right? I mean, I don't know any of them have any doctorates or any of them have any appreciable skills. I don't think anybody was going to the NBA. I don't think anybody was going to the NFL. I don't think anybody was going to Major League Baseball. So what would have Undertaker have done the rest of his life? If he wasn't a professional wrestler. A professional wrestler. Come on, man. Really? So, yeah, it sucks. It sucks. But
Were
I
you
could care
never
less.
were you never a fan of the business? You never liked wrestling, or?
The only time, so I think everybody at one time or another, I'm a father. I have a 42-year-old son. And when Jimmy was 8, probably, no, it had to be at 6. And when I was going through a divorce, I would grab Jimmy and we'd go down to the Izod Center. It was the Izod Center at the time. And I took Jimmy to the Izod Center, and I think I saw Sergeant Slaughter at the Izod Center. Sergeant Slaughter, and I don't remember who. I was probably drunk. but I took my son and a girlfriend to the Izod Center to see. So I think everybody goes, especially if you're in the Northeast once in a while, in terms of something to see. Like you'd go see the Harlem Globetrotters or St. John's basketball one day, or St. Peter's or whatever. The only other time was in about 96, around the time the famous thing happened where WCW was on against WWF, and it was the night, I happened to go through the channels, and it was the night Bischoff said, I think it was Bischoff or one of his 10A or one of those guys said, yeah, and if you were watching that other network, you'd see that Mick Foley won a world championship tonight, And so I was, up to that point, I was watching WCW as a curiosity. I was slightly fascinated by the whole Goldberg thing. I don't remember Goldberg, I probably saw maybe 10, 12 weeks in a row when he got up into the 150s and 160s, 170s of that streak, And by the way, so remember where we were, if you can, that I was talking about if I was ever a fan. By the way, in the middle there, Mitch Goldberg, I used to be on a podcast 15 years ago called Monday Night Mayhem, and it was one of the #1 wrestling podcasts in the world. I arranged an interview with Goldberg, and Billy decided to come on because of me and because of our relationship. And I came in second in the wrestling radio awards. I guess they were WRAs or WAR, whatever they were. And I came in second with the best interview of the year, interviewing Billy Goldberg. It went really well. It was a great interview. So I know a little about your business, but anyway, so it's 96 and 97 maybe. And I was kind of fascinated with WCW. I watched them a lot. But you also knew that was like a car accident. Like you couldn't not watch, Whereas WWE, I wasn't a big fan, but I knew who everybody was, just because I followed sports in general, and people always tell me I look like this wrestler named Stone Cold Steve Austin, and then there was The Rock, and you'd see Nation of Domination, and but you couldn't not watch WCW at the time because it was such a train wreck. It was so bad that it was glorious. Steiner going into business for himself, and Flair going into business, and Hogan and Nash and Razor Ramon, and everybody on a nightly basis going into business for themselves. It was a train wreck. So I wasn't a fan per se, but I knew a little bit about the business, but definitely not a fan. Definitely not a mark. I could care less. So when I took the job, I wasn't really these guys weren't gods to me. It wasn't like working working for the NFL and seeing Peyton Manning and, Ray Lewis every day or something like that, or LT, you know. So yeah, to answer your question, no, not really.
You mentioned Eddie Guerrero. Were you close with Eddie?
Very close with Eddie. There were a few of us who were very close with Eddie. Dave Bautista was very close with Eddie. I was very close to Eddie. Of course, Ray. Of course, Benoit. Of course, Engel. Those middleweight / cruiserweight / heavyweight guys, all ran with each other. Benoit, and Eddie ran together. When Benoit and Eddie wouldn't drive together, I'd drive with Eddie. So we'd go. The problem with Eddie was, Eddie had a lot going on in his life and, personal stuff and the personal demons that I kind of was trying to help him with, but not really, because we had to kind of keep that separate. But I couldn't drive with Eddie because we were always late, and I had to be at the, so we had to stop, we did a couple of months on the road together, and we were having a lot of fun, and we really got to know each other. We were already buddies. I was one of the first guys who greeted him at WWE. He came in one night. I've told this story before. I think it was in Buffalo, New York. And he came back to WWE. I guess it was 2000 and I don't know, maybe 2, 3. I really can't remember. You'd probably know better than me. But I think his first night was in Buffalo, New York, or maybe Rochester. But that's the way I remember it. And I had heard that he had just, recently gotten out of rehab and he was sober. And I went up to him. I said, "Hey, man, he was eating all alone. He got in late. I think they brought him in. I think they just signed him the week before and, and decided that he was ready. And then he got to the show late. So he's eating and catering. He's having dinner all by himself, or a late lunch all by himself. And he had the long black mullet. And I remember he had bright yellow, he was ready to go, bright yellow tights on, pants, whatever you call them. What do you call them? Tights?
Tights. Yep.
Tights.
Yep.
Okay. They had bright yellow tights on and this sharp, and he looked good, he looked good, but he had this really sharp black mullet, very long in the back. And he looked like the guy, like he didn't necessarily look like the guy I remembered from the Mamacita days before that with China. And just went up to him and said, "Hey, I'm Jimmy Noonan. I run security. It's good to know you. And I'm sober. And if you ever want to talk or you want to hang, you want to have a meeting, let's do it, Oh, thank you, man. Oh, man, that's so nice, man. Oh, man, oh, man, you're so cool, man. All right, let me eat my chicken now, motherfucker. You know what I mean? But Eddie, everybody loved Eddie. Yes, Eddie and I were very close, and gotta be up there with the darkest days in WWE history in Minnesota that day. And the worst part was, and the one thing I'll never forgive WWE for, is that we left for the next day. We left for Europe for 14 days. To do a 14-day tour, and we couldn't go to our friend's funeral. We couldn't say goodbye to Eddie. They left John Layfield and I think Dean Malenko and Rey Mysterio and Chavo. I think those were the 4 they left back to represent us. And we never got to say goodbye to Eddie. I'll never forgive them for that. But, I went to, it's businessman, and I get it, but it's fucking Eddie Guerrero, man. And I went to John Layfield. I go, "John, why are we leaving? Where are we going, man? Why? Eddie Guerrero's dead." And John Layfield, and I know John loved Eddie, so that's not where he was coming from. He goes, "Well, what are we supposed to do, Jimmy? To cancel the shows?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Jimmy, we got 40,000 in Hamburg or Stuttgart or Cologne or Berlin, some crappy city in Germany. We got 40,000 fans there. Well, we can't cancel the show." I said, "Why not, man? It's only money." "Yeah, but we got a show there, and we ain't been there in a few years." So we got to go, man. And the worst trip in the history of trips. I mean, when you come around the corner in a backstage and you see Batista and Booker hugging and crying backstage moment, 3 days, 4 days, 5 days after Eddie died, something bad happened. Something serious happened. Something powerful happened. Something profound happened. And it was bad. We couldn't say goodbye to him.
Yeah, that sucks. Man, just crazy to think, if him passing away so, young. I mean, he gets so much more to give. But let's change gears completely and get away from some sadness. What is some of the craziest stories you've had, just as far as being the security at WWE? I mean, anything stick out more than something
Well,
else?
you know what? Somebody reminded. So this kid I'm with now, this kid I'm taking care of, watching, protecting, doing security for, advising. He reminded me of a story the other night that I haven't told in years. I forgot all about it. Somebody mentioned Sweden, and he said, "Don't you have a Sweden story?" I said, "No. What are you talking about?" He says, "Oh, Sweden or Finland." I went, "Oh, Finland. Oh my God, I forgot that story." So we're in Helsinki. We're doing a house show in Helsinki. We had later done a TV in Helsinki, Finland. And Helsinki had the number one rated 18 and under hockey team in the world. And, these are big kids and they're monsters. And they're just the best team in the world, 18 and under. And they don't look like kids. They look like 21, 22-year-olds. Kids are monsters. And to kind of help pay their way, up through the federation, and all the years the federation, I guess, supported them to get to this point, the number one team in the world. They had to, their job was to set up the ring, and to set up for shows and concerts that came through Helsinki, and to break it down, So the hockey teams and come in, and that's their job, to set up and break down. And we couldn't do the soccer, or we definitely couldn't do the soccer place, and we couldn't do the hockey rink. I guess the hockey rink was being used, or the ice was still down, or something like that. So they put us in a rec center, like a civic center, or, a convention center in town in Helsinki, Finland. I think it held about 8,000 people, and everything was very makeshift. It looked like a typical concession center, a place like a concrete floor and a top over it, and basically nothing else. You know what I mean? So they got to put in all the seats, and they got to put in the ring. They put up the bicycle rack, and then to make a little kind of makeshift backstage, they kind of put up curtains. And there's a curtain where the gorilla position would be for all the entrants, ladies and gentlemen from parts unknown, Billy Kidman, Billy Gunn, whatever. So it's the championship match. And I got spidey senses, man. I got a feeling something like this has been a good night. It's been a good night. Something's got to be going wrong. So I walk through Gorilla. I leave my spot at ringside during the house show, and I go through Gorilla, and Brock is about to be introduced. It's the World Championship match, World Championship match. And I think it's Brock versus probably Angle, let's call it. And Angle's entrance comes, and the lights go off, spotlight, beautiful, place goes nuts, 8,000 people. And then I think I just got a feeling something's up. So I walk up through Gorilla while the lights are still off, and I see Brock back there, and Brock's got the trunks, and he's doing his, little hop up and down, getting ready, before they say, ladies and gentlemen, the world champion Brock Lesnar. And from the side, through the curtains, this guy comes through, and he sees me, and he sees Brock Lesnar, and the guy's eyes get like saucers, like, oh my God, it's that guy I've seen on TV. And I said, what the fuck are you doing back here? And he says, I'm looking for the master. I'm looking for the master. So I think this guy's like calling Brock the master, like maybe that's his Helsinki, Finland way of saying like world champion. I'm looking for the master. So I fucking go up and I pow, and I fucking hit this guy in the side of the head, and he goes down hard. And Brock thinks this is the funniest thing he ever sees. Brock spits out his water and is fucking laughing before his entrance, and this kid ain't getting up. So Brock makes his entrance. He stops laughing for a second, looks back at me, and just shakes his head like, "Oh, Noonan, man, you're just too much. The shit you get into,
Yeah.
So I level this kid. Then I check on this kid, and he kind of gets up. Turns out the master is the guy who runs the crew. That's what they call him. They call him the master. And he's not looking for Brock Lesnar. He could give a crap about Brock Lesnar because the kid's a champion hockey player, right? But he's looking for the master. He's looking for the guy who runs his crew so he can report in and do his work and get paid. And little stuff like that happened. And by the way, after he told all his Finnish hockey team guy that the big guy from WWE fucking hit him and almost knocked him out. I probably did knock him out. They were all after me. They came backstage looking for me. It was funny as hell. It was like WWE versus the Finnish hockey team. The boys saying, "Oh, but Brock told them the story that this kid came up on him and stuff like that." But stuff like that happened all the time. You know what I mean? It was one night it'll be a fake Undertaker hitting the ring in Lewiston, Maine. Another guy it'll be hitting the ring at a stupid in the middle of a commercial break during a world championship match, in Detroit. There was stuff going off all the time, all the time. You hide it, you hit it. It wasn't my job to fight. It was my job to take people down. You can't punch people. You can't, especially on camera, especially on TV, but you got to take them down. So that's what we did. I never really got any. Jimmy Tillis, my partner, got a little more trouble than I do. He got caught a couple of times, but I so didn't want to be embarrassed on TV. I always just assumed that something, for the 4-hour show, the heat or velocity before the show, then the 2.5, 3-hour show afterwards, and then the match afterwards. Remember, they were doing dark matches after the main events for years. So really 4 hours out there. I was electric out there because I just assumed something bad was going to happen. Whereas my partner, he would be more like, yeah, another night at WWE, nothing's going to happen. I kind of knew something was going to happen. And if it didn't happen, good. It was a good night and we got out of town. But I just assumed that there was going to be trouble. So it's why I never got caught. He got caught a couple of times. I never got caught.
Did you ever get in trouble for the Finnish hockey player, or no trouble at all?
No trouble at all. The only trouble I got in was one night. So Italy, the fans are really ill-behaved. The Italian fans and the pundits and the sports people call Italian fans passionate. They're not passionate. They're ill-behaved. Really badly behaved. I just so you know, I just got a note from my guy. I got 10 more minutes. Are we cool with that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I just saw up on the thing. He said, "Come to my room in 10 minutes." Anyway, the long and the short is we pull into, I think it was Milan, and the fans storm the bus. There's no hotel security. There's no police. The boys, we can't get off the bus. There's 4,000 fans around the bus. We can't get off the bus to get into the hotel. Not the arena. Just can't even get into a hotel to go to sleep. And the police, nobody's there. And the boys want to get off the bus. And now the boys see they got me. I'm pretty wound up. And now they're, "Oh, Noonan, yeah. Oh, one of Noonan's fuck-ups again. We can't get off the bus because of Noonan." And they got me, man. They got me exactly where they want me. And they're tuning me up. Taker, Booker, Eddie, everybody's tuning me up. "Oh, yeah, well, we can't get to our rooms because of Noonan." So now finally the police show up, the Policia, and they show up in light blue coats and light blue caps, and they're all short and they're all chubby. They don't look like police, right? These powder blue coats. And I'm the first guy off the bus. Maybe Earl Hebner was with me, maybe Dean Malenko, one of the agents. And we're kind of pushing through the crowd. And some guy very aggressively puts his hand on me. And I turn around and pow! I knocked this mother out. And then we look down, and it's a guy in a powder blue coat. It's the police. I just knocked out a cop. Now, this is what you call an international incident. This is not going to be received well. Thank God TMZ wasn't around back then, because this was bad. And not only that, I'm gone for the rest of the trip. Maybe I'm gone for a couple of years in an Italian jail. It's bad. It's bad. And the boys are laughing their ass off as they walk by. Oh, look what Noonan did. Oh, this is great. Now they got something to talk the rest of the trip, right? Turns out, thank God, I get everybody in. I go back. They don't arrest me yet, but they're looking for info. I go over to the cop, the policia. Turns out it was a clean shot. It wasn't in a bad spot. It wasn't in the eye. It was just in the jaw. He weathered it. He got up. He was in a little pain. And turns out he's a huge wrestling fan. Huge wrestling fan. And I said, I said, sir, this is who I am. I tried to explain to him in broken Italian and all he wanted was he wanted to come to the show that night and bring his kids. And that took everything. It was all done after that. He came to he was our guest at the show that night. He sat ringside with his kids, and his kids came backstage, and Stone Cold and Rocky and everybody who was there signed autographs for the guy. So, I got lucky. But stuff like you'd be surprised. That stuff happened more than anybody even knows. Did you get in trouble sometimes? You got in trouble sometimes for lesser stuff. I didn't get in trouble. It's the price of doing business. And by the way, when Vince would hear something like that, Vince would laugh his ass off. Noonan did what? He hit a cop in Italy? That fucking Noonan. Noonan did what? Hit a hockey player? Everybody else would be like, oh, we're going to have a problem? Nah, because I take care of shit. You know what I mean? I get shit done, So.
Yep.
For the most part, nah. I mean, I got trouble for stupid stuff. I got stupid for being rude to building people, And that, that was kind of like my job. We'd go into buildings and they just weren't ready for our product. They were not ready. They didn't have the proper security. They didn't have any tough guys. They weren't ready for our crowd. And I'd have to go open a can of whoop ass sometimes on them. And they just weren't happy about it. And so they would complain to the office. And there was always some jerk in the office who'd be like, you can't do this and you can't do that. And you can't talk to people like that. Guess what? I'm on the road. You're not. I got this. Go fuck yourself. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah, well said. As we hit the wind down, we head towards the finish because I know you're on active duty right now. Where can everybody follow you social media wise? Get your book maybe, and maybe follow your Broadway show.
So yeah, about 5 years ago, I wrote a book called Getting Color, not Getting Cover, Getting Color, and it's an apt name for a book. It's the adventures. Fiction, of course, the adventures of a world champion wrestler and his 365 days with the belt, with the strap. It's called Getting Color. It's available at all the usual outlets, Amazon and I did okay with it initially. I had a big book party in Jersey and I sold a crap load of books. Everybody came from all over to, get autographed copies of it, and that was nice. And I'm working on the second half of it. It was kind of like in two parts, part two. But Getting Color by Jimmy Noonan. Otherwise, everybody, I'm on IMDb, Jimmy Noonan at IMDb. You look up my movie credits, see some of the movies I've been in and some of the TV shows. I was on this past April. I was on FBI's Most Wanted. I had a nice little role on the TV show FBI Most Wanted. I still do that stuff, but I'm probably in the fourth quarter of life. You know, I'm 65. Maybe if I'm lucky, I'm in the third period. But I'm somewhere in there, and it's you know, I don't know how it looks. You know, you never know how it looks. But someday I will die, and I will be gone, and people will still be seeing my picture at ringside during matches with Batista and Benoit and Eddie, some of the most electrifying matches in the history of wrestling. I was at ringside for some of the most underrated WrestleManias. I was at ringside for WrestleMania in Seattle, the most underrated WrestleMania in history. Co-main event, Steven Rock. Co-main event, Vince and Hogan. Main event, Brock versus Angle. I mean, come on. Those three right there make it the greatest WrestleMania ever. I don't give a shit what anybody says, you know.
Yep.
And it was at Safeco Field, and there'll never be another one at Safeco Field for reasons only I know. And yeah, Jimmy Noonan. Well, everything is my name, Jimmy Noonan. Instagram, Jimmy Noonan. Facebook, Jimmy Noonan. It's all. Everything's in my name. There's nothing special, you know. Otherwise, you know, life is good. Hello to everybody. You know, I guess, you know, every once in a while people think of me and thinking, man, I wonder what that guy's doing. I have no idea why I'm on here tonight. I have no idea why you called. I have no idea why you were interested. I mean, I guess in some level I understand, because there's that, you know, maybe you saw a picture of me at ringside. I said, I wonder what, and you heard me on a podcast one time. I wonder what that guy was doing. You know, let's give him a call. Let's see if he'll come on the podcast, you know? So who knows? But anybody who's out there and listening, I think the most important thing I could say is, you know, keep doing the right thing. We're in a tough world right now. It's not good out there. Always situational awareness. Always keep an eye over your shoulder. It's the world we live in. And if there's anybody out there suffering from any type of mental illness, or just having some problems, or depression, or having some bad thoughts, or if you're suffering with substance abuse, whether it be alcohol or cocaine or needles or all of the above, or hydrocodone, there are people like me out there who will listen to you, and they'll help you, and we'll get you to a 12-step meeting. And if we have to, we'll get you to a rehab. And there are people who really, really, really do care about you. Like, all of this stuff I said earlier in this podcast is nonsense compared to the fact that if you ever need help getting sober, staying sober, or ever have any mental health problems, there are people who are willing to help you. And I'm one of them.
All right. Jimmy, thank you so much for all the time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, man. Thank you.